Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another of my film reviews. And today's review is for the 2019 horror film The Wretched, a film that is written and directed by Brett Pierce and Drew T. Pierce, the Pierce brothers, I suspect, and it stars John Paul Howard, Piper Curda, Jameson Jones, Zara Marla and Kevin Bigley. And this is a film that focuses on a small US coastal town, and a teenager called Ben has been sent home essentially to spend some time with his father. His parents are close to a divorce, and he's spending some time with his father, who works at the local docks. He gives his teenage son a job there, meets a girl, everything seems pretty ordinary. However, he notices that there are some strange goings on next door, and he grows more and more concerned, and after doing more and more investigating, he suspects that there may be foul play, and there may well be a witch involved that has been spending its time living in the forests, but could well be living next door now. Right, so that's the basic premise of the film here, Wretched. What are my thoughts on this film? Well, I actually really quite enjoyed this film. It was a really nicely made, nicely polished, old-fashioned horror film. It wasn't crammed full of tropes and jump scares and all the awful things that horror films put in today. It actually did its job, and did its job particularly well, and that's really quite refreshing. So from that standpoint, I applaud the film. It had it moved along at quite a nice pace. It had some decent scares in it, some pretty gory scenes, some creepy imagery going on here and there, all the right sounds going off, the creaks and clacks and the noises that this creature makes. It's a really nicely made horror film. I do think when I talk about tropes, there was one trope that really bugs me in horror films, and I mentioned it on my top 10 most hated cliches and tropes in horror films I did fairly recently. There was a really annoying internet section in the film where he's doing his search over the internet. He finds everything he wants to know in seconds almost. Again, it's just not how the world works. I don't like it when they do that so much in film, but I understand how they want to move the plot along. And it was nicely done. I thought the effects were quite effective. You don't see much of this creature. I mean, I'm going to call it a witch, because that's what you get the impression that it is, certainly in the film. And it kind of lives out deep in the woods, and you see a section at the beginning of the film that shows it a little bit more, and it kind of makes its way to Ben's neighbour's house. Supposedly, what it likes to do, this creature, this witch, is basically take over the skin of another human, and then it kind of makes you forget your family, makes you care about anything really, and then it can kind of have its way with the lovely juicy children that obviously are very tasty. So it's creepy and it's scary, and I really quite like that twist on how it can make you forget the ones closest to you, the ones that you love, and it did a really nice twist at the end as well that I really appreciate, in regards to that very plot point, in regards to how it makes you forget your family. That I wasn't expecting. I didn't see that bit coming, and I appreciated that. So yeah, it's not the best horror film I've seen this year either, or even I've seen many more better horror films in the last 12 months. It's just a nicely made horror film that I really appreciated, and it didn't ruin itself by putting all the awful tropes that you see, generally speaking, in horror films. I thought the performances here were all on point. I thought the actors all did a good job. Even some of the child actors, again, child actors in horror films or any films can make or break them, and I do think they all perform particularly well here in the film, all the actors and some of the child actors as well. I thought John Paul Howard, who played Ben, who essentially has to carry this film, is a young actor. I thought he had some pretty good screen presence, and I keep an eye on this kid really as an actor. I think he could probably go far. He really held the film together, and he had an interesting arc to his character because he wasn't a particularly likeable character. He made mistakes in this film, said the wrong things as teenagers do, upset his father, upset his father's girlfriend, and there was many. When he essentially tries to explain himself and explains what's going on, there's many reasons for people not to believe him, because he's not behaved particularly impeccably throughout this film. You know what I mean? He dumps his father. He's supposed to be having dinner with his father and his new girlfriend, and he dumps them and goes off to have a party with his friends, as a lot of teenagers would do. So I like that aspect of it. It had that realistic feel to it of this dynamic between a father and a son's relationship, especially a father who's divorcing the mother of this kid. So I thought it handled that dynamics really, really well, and it was really, really refreshing to see that kind of family dynamic in a film and done to a realistic level. So yeah, I think I'm going to give this 7 out of 10, only because I thought I don't know, it didn't show enough soon enough, if you like, and when it did, it didn't necessarily deliver on what I hoped it would in regards to scares and things like that. But like I say, I must admit I did enjoy this film. I thought it was nicely made. I thought it was fairly creative, a decent idea. I just think they could have ramped the scares and the horror up to maybe another level, and I think it would have elevated this film to something even more special, I think. So that's my review for The Wretched. A nicely made horror film that is worth checking out, I think. So thank you very much for watching, everybody, and of course I'll see you back for more reviews on screen.